Hello and welcome. This is Edexcel iGCSE Computer Science. This is the past paper question, paper 2, Application of Computational Thinking. Now, this paper, total marks, is out of 80 and it is 3 hours long. To go with the paper, you need to have the Python files, which I've included. Now, there's also options for you to use C# or Java, but the Python files, and I will go through this paper in Python. So as you fill the paper, you must select the correct programming language, and for me it is Python. Your examination center would have already selected that for you anyway, so for me that's going to be Python. So we jump into question 1. So question 1. Computer programs make use of many programming constructs. Identify which one of these is not an arithmetic operator. So add, divide, equals, or modulus. The answer is equals. All the rest, add, divide, modulus, are arithmetic operators, but equals is not. B. State the values used by the Boolean data type. It is, of course, true or false. You can also have T or F or 1 or 0 there. C. Open Q01Z in the code editor. So I've linked a copy of this down in the description. Now, you should have a copy of this in an exam as well. There are 3 errors of code. The program should multiply 2 integers. There are 3 errors. Amend the code to correct the integer. Save it as Q01C when finished, when you have corrected everything. So the best way around this is to actually open the program and run it rather than look through and try and find the errors. We're just going to run it. And the first thing I've got there is invalid syntax. So if I look at that, there's an extra space there which shouldn't be there, so I'm going to delete the space and I'm going to save it now as Q01C finished, and I'm going to run it again. Invalid syntax again, num3, num3, display, num3. There should be brackets around num3, and we don't ever write display, we write print. So another error, num1 is not defined. So we look at num1 at the top, there's the capital O, which is missing in this variable here, so we just simply change that there, and we save that again, and run that again, and then my program now works, and it's saved as Q01C finished, and that is the finished code there. So I can close that now. As long as it's saved as Q01C finished in my program folder, I can then close that. So going down now to D, what is meant by a variable? Variable is a container used to store data, and I'm going to put temporarily. You can also have something that can change throughout the program, etc. But it's a temporary container to store data as I run the program. E. Aisha has written a program that calculates the sum of a set of numbers. Open Q01E in the code editor. So here is Q01E, and I need to answer some questions about it. The first question is, number 1, identify the line number where the code includes logic operator. In Python, we need to count the lines. We count down 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. There's a logical operator and, so we put line 6. So you need to be able to count the lines down and need to put the correct line number there in Python, which is line 6. Go down, identify the line number where a subprogram definition starts. So 1, 2, 3. Here, def for define, definition of a function. So it is line 3. Number 3, identify the name of a numeric variable. So anything there, a variable name that says equal to a number, so we'll just use amount. Amount equals 0. Amount's the best one there. I'm going to go with amount. And the last question, number 4, identify the name of a string variable. So here's a string, message. I know it's a string because it's got the quotation marks. So that's a string variable, and I'm going to use that as my answer, message. And that completes question 1 for 10 marks. Question 2, Rama wants some computer programs for his daughter, Aomi. Rama wants a program to calculate the area of a triangle. Area of a triangle equals half base times height. Pseudocode contains the logic required to create the program. So here is our pseudocode. 22 lines, including spaces. So what we need to do for this question is take the pseudocode and write the program and save it as Q02A finished. So here is Q2A, and Q02A, there's a missing 0 in there. What I've got is comments. Comments indicate they match the comments in the pseudocode, and that's where I need to write my code. So first thing I need to do is set base to be 50. So first line of code I've written there is base equals 50. Now I need to set height check to true. So now I've done the second line there, set height check to true. Now I'm doing the other lines of code, print prompt and take input from user. So we've got a missing line there. If we scroll down, line 7, while height check do, so I need to do that one. So I'm going to write the code in here. In Python we don't have while do, we have while with a colon. So my code looks like this. While height check, and height check should be spelled exactly like that with the camel case, the uppercase C, while height colon, next line, send enter height between 1 and 100 to display. So press return and need to write the next line of code. So here we are, height equals int input, enter height between 1 and 100 colon. And then if you've opened two brackets, don't forget to close two brackets. Don't forget to close quotation marks as well. So enter height between 1 and 100 display, receive height from integer keyboard. So in this one line of code, I've been able to combine lines 9 and 10. You can do 9 and 10 in 2 lines of code, but I recommend if you can, you combine it in 1 line of code. So height equals int input. Please enter height between 1 and 100. Receive height from integer keyboard, so that will do that there. Int input will do the integer received there. If height is greater than or equal to 1 and height is less than or equal to 100, so we do line 11. So our code looks like this. If height is greater than or equal to 1 and height is less than or equal to 100, pretty much mirroring what we've got in the pseudocode, except this time we put colon there and the if is in lowercase. Okay, then return, then height check equals false, line 12. So here you can see height check equals false. End if, we don't normally have end if in Python. We don't need to do an end if, end while. We don't need to do end while either. What we need to do now is calculate the area and print out values. So we're going to scroll down here, set area to 0.5 times base times height. So there's my line of code there. Area equals 0.5 times base times height. Then I need to do my printouts. Send base of triangle is base to display. Height of triangle is height to display. Area of triangle is area to display. 20, 21, and 22, which look like this. And remember the comma there, base, comma height, comma area. So print the sentence there, comma base, comma height, comma area. And that completes the program, and we need to save that as Q02A finished, and then we need to run it and check it works. So here I'm running my program, enter the height. If I put 5, base of triangle is 50, height of triangle is 5, area of triangle is 125.0. So that is my completed program there. So that is that question done. Now we move on to B. Iomi wants a program that will calculate the number of fence panels required to surround building sites, such as the one shown in the diagram, not to scale. So you've got width and length, the building site with an access point. And the details we've got here are that each building site is a rectangle. Each fence panel is 1 meter long. A gap of 4 meters is needed to access the site, so the access point is 4 meters. Where the location of the gap is not significant. The user will input the length and width of the building site as a whole number, meters, so it will be an integer. The program will output the minimum number of full panels needed, so there needs to be some kind of multiplication there. Thinking that multiplication to multiply that by 1 panel each, 1 meter, and then we need to take away the 4 meters for the gap. Q02B provides a structure for the program. So here is Q02B, and helpfully we've got these comments that tell us where we need to write the code. So we need to set initial values of variables, we need to request an input, we need to calculate the number of panels needed, we need to print out the number of panels needed. So let's start up here. We set the initial values of variables. Now, there isn't actually much to calculate here because each fence panel is 1 meter, so we can just do that as a multiplication. And the gap, we could set a variable for that, so minus gap, but we can just take away 4 anyway from our calculation. So there isn't really anything we need to do, set initial values of variables there. We need to skip to request input. So rereading the problem, the first 2 things I need are the length and the width of the building site as a whole. So they need to be integer input, so just simply call it length equals integer input, please enter the length, width equals integer input, please enter the width. Now I need to calculate the number of panels needed. So now I need to calculate the number of panels needed, so my calculation is panels equals 2 times length plus 2 times width. Why 2 times? Why 2 multiplied by length and width? Because there's 2 sides. So we think it's a rectangle, there's going to be 2 lengths and 2 widths. I need to add them both together. Then I need to subtract the gap, that there needs to be the entrance gap, subtract 4, and then I need to print out the number of panels needed for the last point. So write that into a sentence, print number of panels needed, comma, panels. So then I can save that as Q02B finished and run it. So enter the length, I put 4 and enter the width 2. So number of panels needed equals 8, because that would be 4 times 2, which is 8, added to 2 times 2, which is 4. So 8 plus 4 is 12. Take away the 4 that we need for the gap, and that would leave me with 8. So my program is correct. And that completes question 2 for a total of 17 marks. Question 3. Several encryption algorithms have been developed. State what is meant by the term encryption. Encryption is simply converting plain text, so unencrypted text, into ciphertext. And for B, we need to give one reason why data may need to be encrypted. We encrypt to ensure that only authorized people can read it. C1. Perform a rail fence cipher encryption of the text computational using a key of 4. Show your working. Now to answer this, I'm going to go into PowerPoint and create this in PowerPoint because it's not easy for me to do it in this software. I'm going to use PowerPoint to answer it, but you simply draw it on the exam paper. Now, what I need to do to answer a question like this is create a table, and because I've got a key of 4, it needs to have 4 rows. So here I've created my table. Now, do as many columns as you want, but you need to have 4 rows. And what you simply do is start writing the letters in. So with the rail fence, I need to write them in a diagonal fashion. And I need to spell out the word, but I need to write it as triangles, like this. Computation, I need another T, I, O, N, A, L. So I haven't need to choose that last column there. Computational, make sure you spell it properly, because you'll be handwriting this. So 2 T's there, yeah, 2 O's, yeah. So now what I do is I take each row and I write it out. So C-A-L, then I usually draw a line there, but leave a space at least, O-T-T-A, so leave a space, so O-T-T-A, leave a space to make it clear that they're different, M-U-I-N and P-O. And that is my cipher encryption using rail fence of the text, the plain text, computational, and that's showing my working. And that answers that question. Last part of question 3, number 2. Explain one reason why the rail fence cipher is a weak encryption algorithm. So put as my answer, due to the limited number of keys, there's only so many keys you can have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's only so many keys you can have for that. Probably after 5, that's probably as many as you're going to have for a rail fence cipher. So due to the limited number of keys, rail fence is easily decodable by brute force. So if you've got a key of 3, you can easily just using brute force, just going over it again and again and again, you can easily decode that. Even without the key, you can easily decode that. There's only so many keys you can have. So, due to the limited number of rail fence keys, it's easily decodable by brute force, and that is why it's a weak encryption algorithm. And that completes question 3 for 8 marks. Question 4. Gianluca is a school teacher. He's in charge of a year group of pupils. He starts to create a program to analyze test results. Open Q04A in the code editor. Amend the code to complete the if statement used to produce the outputs described in this table. So we've got the condition there and the outputs. So you can read those. You can see that different conditions, meaning have they passed or failed 1 or 2 tests, or if they passed it with distinction. So here is Q04A, and you can see we've got an array of different students there and their scores. We've got a message, there's another array there. And then we've got for student in student test scores, we've got a for loop there, and we've got an if statement. We can see gaps. They're the gaps where I'm going to write my conditions. So we're going to start with the first one, if. If something, student failed both. So I need a condition that says student failed both tests. So that is if their English test score is less than 40 and their maths test score is less than 50. So this is my first condition. If English is less than 40 and maths is less than 50. Now we notice that there that English is spelt with lowercase e. Normally it would be spelt with an uppercase e, but here we need to spell it with a lowercase e, and we put the and in, the operator and. So if their English is less than 40 and their maths is less than 50, then they failed both tests. So let's do the elif. So student failed 1. So for student to fail 1, English test score was less than 40, or maths test score was less than 50. So we need an or in there. So here's my next condition. English is less than 40, or maths is less than 50. So that needs to be an or. So if either of those are the case, or, then they've failed 1. Next elif, they passed both with distinction, and we notice that that score needs to be at least 80, and the math score was at least 85 for them to have passed both tests with distinction. So here's my condition. If English is greater than or equal to 80 and maths is greater than or equal to 85, students pass both with distinction. Message index 2 there. So 0, 1, 2. Students pass both tests with distinction. Then I need my else there. Other conditions, students passed both tests. So I need to do the else in there. And that's simply going to be message index equals 3, which is that one student passed both tests. And that completes the program, so I need to now save it as Q04A finished and run it. So running the program, we can see these results here, and we could just take one of these students. David Smith, for example, failed both tests. Let's just go and have a look at David Smith. 39 and 48, yeah, he's failed both tests. Whereas, let's take someone who's got distinction. Donna Alexander, 84 and 86. Donna Alexander passed both with distinction, so she's got distinction there. So that completes that program. 4b. Gianluca started to create a program to analyze pupil attendance. We want to use the menu system with subprograms. Open Q04B in the code editor. The program must include subprograms to display the names of students whose percentage attendance was less than 75, count and display the number of students whose percentage attendance was 90% or higher. And you write it in Q04B. And you save it as Q04B finished. Now just a recommendation here. How you tackle this program is up to you, but if I've got 2 bullet points there and I've got to write a subprogram, what I'm going to do is I think I'll get option 1 to work first, and then I'll get started on option 2. So I'm going to write my subprogram for menu option 1 here, and I need to start with defining a function. So as this is students with low attendance, I'm going to call it def low attendance. My function is called low attendance brackets brackets colon, and I've defined my function and I'm ready to go. So I need to display the number of students whose percentage attendance was less than 75, so I need to loop through all of these elements and print off element 2 there of students, for example, Farouk Salah, whose attendance is less than 75, person's name needs to be printed off. So I'm starting with a for loop here. For x in range to the length of pupil attendance, I'm going to look through each element there, loop through each element, and I want to search for the students who are less than 75. So if pupil attendance x minus 1, so I'm starting at element 0, brackets 2, so we're looking at 70 there, for example, is less than 75, then I need to print their name out. I'll print pupil attendance x minus 1 because that's what I've been using, 0 and 1. So element 0 and 1. So for example, Farouk, element 0, and Salah, element 1, will be printed up. Then I need a return in there to return to the main function. Now I'd said we'd get one thing done at a time, so let's put in low attendance there, let's call that function, and we're going to save that as Q04B finished. And we're going to run that first function, check that it works. So expected an index block there. I'm going to run that again. Just commented out that second index block there. So I'm just going to choose the number 1 there. And they're all my low attenders. And we could see that Farouk, Salah 70, Amara, Brzezinski there 70. Yeah, that looks correct. So now I need to get the second one to work. So I need to do the option 2. With all the students with high attendance. So I'm going to define a new function, def high attendance. So here I've defined high attendance and I'm ready to write my function. So because I need to count and display the number of students, percentage attendance was 90% or higher, I need a count. So I'm going to initialize the variable count and set it to 0. I'm going to have exactly the same code as low attendance, but this time I'm going to say, instead of less than 75, I'm going to say greater than or equal to 90, and instead of printing that off, I'm going to add 1 to the count and return the count. So now I've created that function, I need to be able to run it. So I need to write my elif. So first thing I'm going to do is uncomment that, and I'm going to be ready to write my elif in here. So option 2 needs to be able to print the high attenders, the number of high attenders. So I've created a variable called high at, which is equal to high attendance, which is calling the function high attendance, and it's going to store the variable, the value there in high at. So now I can simply print that off. There were high at, so that is the value, high attenders. So now I'm going to save that, and I'm going to run it. And I'm going to choose option 2. There were 7 high attenders. Is that correct? So I'm just going to go and make a double check. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is correct. And that is a completed program, Q04B. So remember, how did I do that? Well, I took each bullet point at a time and I commented down code where I needed to, and I got one thing to work and I got the second thing to work. What I'm not going to do is to go and try and get both to work, and then one doesn't work and then I've got a headache. With a question like this, just exam tip. This question is 7 marks. So if you're getting part of it to work, but you couldn't get the second bullet point to work, you're going to get some marks for that. Whereas if none of it works, you're not going to get any marks. So I would take each bullet point at a time, and what I would do is get one thing to work, one bullet point to work, and then move on to the second bullet point. So that completes question 4 for a total of 13 marks. Question 5. Keris Jones is a manager of a shop that sells electrical goods. She's creating a stock control program. Each item in the stock will have a 10-character code. Each code consists of 3 parts. Characters 1 to 3 are uppercase letters, characters 4 to 9, numbers between 1 and 9 inclusive, character 10, E or 0, indicating whether the sum of numbers is even or odd. And we can see valid codes there. So first 3 letters, uppercase, numbers between 1 and 9, and an E or an O after it. So we need to write some validation tests. Erroneous data, we need 2 more for 4 marks. So first test we might do is test whether the first 3 letters are uppercase. And now I need some erroneous data, so I'm going to put in some lowercase letters and numbers. So my test is ABC, so the first 3 characters are lowercase, but the rest of it is all correct. So it needs to do another validation test for another 2 marks. So I'm going to check whether it consists of only 10 characters. So I need to put some erroneous data that contains 11 characters in. So my erroneous data would be FFF111111EE, which is 11 characters, which will be erroneous data. B. Keras will need an algorithm to search table of stock data. State 2 advantages of using linear search algorithm rather than a binary search algorithm. So we can say with the linear search algorithm, it can be used for unsorted lists. So with the linear, as opposed to binary, binary needs to be sorted for it to work. But with the linear, we don't need it to be sorted. Another advantage I'm going to write is that it's simple to program. 2. State 2 disadvantages of using a linear search algorithm rather than a binary. So my first disadvantage is it may take a long time with a larger list. And my second disadvantage is it may need to compare all items before completing, so it's inefficient. C. Keras will use functions and procedures in a program. One similarity between a function and procedure is that they're both subprograms. State 2 other similarities. A similarity we can write is that they both use local variables, and a second similarity I'm going to write is that they both can be independently tested. You could also write code can be reused without being rewritten, and they could be called anywhere within the program, which is a similarity. So the difference between a function and procedure to finish this question. A function always has a return, a procedure does not. And that completes question 5 for 12 marks. So now let's look at question 6. So in the paper 2, you'll get a big question at the end of the paper, usually question 5 or question 6. That is a programming question, and you'll be given a scenario, a problem to solve, and that's pretty much it. You won't be given any pseudocode, you won't be given any kind of guidance apart from the question, the problem that you need to solve. Obviously 20 marks is a big chunk of marks, and the way the marks break down is they're looking for certain things. So they're looking for certain things in your way you program and also the way you tackle as well. So you need to have a plan. So we'll read through the question now and go and have a look at how we might answer that question. Farshia is a regional manager for an insurance company. She manages a team of sales staff. She wants a program to analyze the performance of a team over a number of months. Test data has been included in the code Open Q06 in the code editor. So this is Q06 here. So we can see we've got a sales record there, staff sales, and we've got staff ID, first name, last name. So obviously we're thinking element 0, element 1 is first name, element 2, last name, and then we've got their sales January, February, March, April, May, and June. So the bullet points here are going to tell us what we need to do. We need to calculate and display the total sales made by each member of the team, calculate and display the total sales made by the whole team, display the first name, last name, and total sales made by the 2 members of the team with the highest total sales, so that is first and second. And the program should function correctly even if the number of months or number of members of the team is changed. So what we need to do is add up all the sales for each person over those 6 months there and find out the person with the highest and the person with the second highest. Then we need to add up for the whole team. We need to display the names of the first highest and the second highest. So when I'm given a question like this, I need to think about how I'm going to respond to it. And you need to understand what you're asked to do. You need to read through the question 2 to 3 times at least to make sure you don't leave anything out. It's quite easy to assume that something's there that isn't, or kind of put your own kind of spin on things. Read it through 2 to 3 times and make notes if you need to. Make sure you really understand what the question is asking you to do. The bullet points are what you need to do, and you need to pick out anything involved that I have here that I've talked about. Your program should function correctly even if the number of months, number of members of the team is changed. So now I'm going to plan my response. I'm going to think about the first thing on any kind of question like this is what variables do I need to store? Highest sales, second highest sales, high, number of highs there, second. So not only the number of sales but also the name, all staff total as well, and my program structure. So just making some notes about what I need to do. I need to loop through each element in the list, starting at element 3. So that's where the number is. I need to add each number in each line while not at the end of each element in the array. So I need to add the 6 months together. I need to go through each line in turn for each person, and then I need to print off member of staff and their sales total. To print the member of staff and their total sales that I've added up. Then I need to print the total sales for all staff. Then I need to print the name and total of the staff with the highest sales, and then the staff of the second highest sales. So now I'm going to start writing some code, and the first thing I'm going to do is create my variables. So when asked to do something like this, which is maybe add elements from an array, and I need somewhere to store that, and I need to set those variables to be 0. Also, if I'm finding the highest or lowest, I need to set that to be 0 at the start. So all staff total is set to 0, highest sales is set to 0, second sales is set to 0, high is set to 0, and second is set to 0 as well. So now I've done that, I've created a title. It is going to look like a report, sales for each member of staff, and I've forced a new line there as well. So now I'm going to go into a loop and loop through each element of the array. So a for loop for staff in staff sales, and I'm ready to create some code that's going to go through each member of staff. So staff total is set to 0 there, which is going to record staff total as I go through, and sales is set to 3, because remember we're looking at element 3. So element 0 is a staff ID, element 1 is first name, element 2 is second name, surname, and then element 3 starts where the sales figures are that I want to add up. So while loop, while sales is less than 9, so remember we've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 elements, so while it's less than 9, so I'm looking through each row in turn. So staff total equals staff total plus staff sales. So I'm adding each one up to create my staff total. I've done that, I'm looking at the next element in the array, and then printing off as required the first name and surname and the staff total as requested. Next, I'm finding the one with the highest sales. So highest sales is set to 0, so it won't stay at 0, but it's going to find the highest sales in each element. So if staff total is greater than highest sales, then highest sales equals staff total. Then the high that I want is equal to the staff that I've found. So now my else to my if, second highest member of staff, second sales equals staff total, and second equals staff, so I can now print off the member of staff with the second highest sales. And all staff total equals all staff total plus staff total to add up the total number of sales. Now finally, I just want to print the whole lot off. So I'm just going to add some print lines to print off all the results that I found. I've created a new line, total sales for all staff. There, so it's kind of done an underline and then created a new line and said title total sales for all staff. Then I've printed the highest sales by the high there, so the person with the highest sales and the second highest sales have been printed off there as well. So now I come to run the program and I'll show you how it works. So this should be your output. So I've got the sales for each member of staff, I've got the total sales for all staff there added up, highest sales by, and then the person with the highest sales, and the second highest sales by, and the person with the second highest sales off. So please pause it and just take a look at the code, see how you get on. That is one of many solutions you could have to that. As long as it meets some of the requirements, you'll be fine. There. You're getting marks for initializing variables, adding succeeding month's sales to total sales, display total sales, loop repeats for each member of staff. This is how you're getting marks. Loop repeats for each member of staff, yeah. Running team totals sales initialized. Add succeeding individual staff sales to team total. Display running total final. Staff member with the highest individual sales identified. Staff member with the second highest individual sales identified. Information about the staff with the highest sales displayed. Information about the staff with the second highest sales displayed. So just to make that clear, here's what I've just said, and that's the 11 marks. So So the remaining 9 marks should be allocated on best fit. So that's what the examiner is looking for. The remaining 9 marks being given here. So you want readable code, so consider putting comments in if you need to, clear logic, meets the requirements, etc. to a total of 9 marks there. So have a look at that. That's how the marks break down. So 11 marks for the components and then 9 marks to a total of 20 for different elements of the code, how you've actually coded it. So that will be a total of 20 marks. And even if that seems daunting, you need to have a go because you could salvage some marks from it. And some marks are better than no marks. So what you can't do is just not do it. You need to have a go at it. So think through it logically. Think about things we talked about. What variables do you need to store? What are you going to do with the data? How are you going to loop through each element of the array? How are you going to add it up? And you can go from there. And as I said, you need to have a go at this because you could salvage some marks from it. Even if you don't get a full 20, some marks from this are better than no marks from this. So good luck with it. So that completes paper 2, and I wish you the best of luck with that. Everything that you need is linked down in the description. Please, as always, like and subscribe. Let me know how you get on in the comments. I'm always glad to hear your comments. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.